Yeah, well, I mean, that was pretty much the whole point. Is it's gotten to the point where people are just they're fed up, and this is why you're seeing the big labor movement, and that's what's going on. But we'll move on. Let's do some fun clips and wrap up here. How about that? Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
I've got some Dave Ramsey ones. Let's do this one first, and if we have the time, we'll do the next one. Hang on a sec. So let me see if it gets teed up here real quick while we go through commercials. So this one is Dave Ramsey's going to explain. This is actually apropos. I didn't catch that, but yeah, he's going to explain what really caused inflation. This is what really caused it. Not what the experts we heard before said. This is Dave.
Why do I feel like it's about to become my fault? Is this about to be my fault?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It is. Well, I don't know. Are you a worker? It probably is going to be your fault.
It might be my fault.
Let's see what he says.
Jared is with us in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Hi, Jared. Welcome to the Ramsey Show.
I always forget how slow he is. Hang on, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I have a question regarding cost of living raises compared to inflation. I personally enjoy giving my customers the cheapest service available, yet to keep up with inflation, we have to give raises. How do those two things mesh together? And is there anything we can do to battle the inflation as a business owner?
No, not. Your job is not the macroeconomy. Your job is to run your business, and that means take care of your family and the families that you pay. That's your job. The macroeconomy discussion is that when things go up, when the cost of a loaf of bread, the cost of a service, the cost of a pack of hot dogs, whatever it is you want to call it, a gallon of gas, when the cost of that goes up, one of the reasons the cost of the item has gone up to the consumer when you raise your prices in business is because their cost of goods has gone up. If their cost of goods, for instance, if we print a book, a total money makeover, a Baby Steps Millionaire's book, well, the cost of paper has gone up 30% in the last 24 months. All right. And so that's going to be built into my pricing on the next book that we put out. Agreed? If the cost of that book includes a dock worker to do the shipping and a truck driver to deliver it, and both of those people get paid more by me to bring me that book, then
yada. Yeah, we know. Cost goes up, then prices go up. Yeah, we know.
So anytime you pay people more inside your business, you have to absorb that in price changes. And so price increases are always.
Well, you don't always. That's This is real basic, okay? Right. If the price goes up, then the price goes up, and you have to do something about that, which means either you have to cut costs somewhere else, or you have to raise your prices. Right?
Right.
Now, whether you're doing macro or microeconomics, like as a business owner, right? The bottom line is if you raise prices, demand is going to go down. Right? So there's two sides of this coin, and he always misses the main one, which is demand. He's just looking at supply. Right? Is it just me, or because he hasn't mentioned demand at all. Right? So here's the deal. If he starts raising the prices of his books, there's a certain price where demand's going to go down that he's going to lose money. Right? So you're trying to find that happy balance, which is what is the price I can set it at where I'm going to make the most amount of money. And it doesn't always mean selling the most amount of money.
If you go above that, then you're going to move less of the product because people will have a threshold.
Right.
I certainly know that I have thresholds for lots of goods that I buy. I'll buy it at this price, but if it jumps above that, I'm not that interested anymore. I'll do something else.
Right.
You know?
But the thing you have to understand about that is when it comes to these sorts of supply-demand issue is it really comes down to where are you going to, ideally what you're looking for is, as a business person, where am I going to make the most amount of money? Right? And it doesn't, the volume is not always the issue, right? Because, for example, let's say we're selling a book, right? And we make $1 a book. That's our profit per book, right? After everything. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, if I know if we set it at the price at $5, right, for the book, we'll sell 1,000,000 copies, right? That's our projection. Well, then we'll make $1 million because we'll get $1 per book, right? But what if I set the price at $10 million per book and I get one guy to buy it at $10 million? Well, wouldn't that be the price we'd want to set it at? Because I sold 1,000,000 here, but I only made $1 million. But I sold one here for 10 million. Right? But if I set it at 10 million, what are the odds somebody's going to buy it? Very, very small. So I'm trying to find that magic price in between, which is going to do it. And where a lot of business owners screw up, and this is what he's not factoring, is, yeah, the price is going up. What are your competitors doing? Because if you set your prices too high, now everybody's going to go somewhere else. Right?
Yeah.
So this idea that, oh, we can just set the price at whatever, well, he kind of can do that, not so much with his books, because he makes most of his money on his Peace University and, selling other people's information to financial people. So for him, it's not a big deal. But if I'm a restaurant owner or a store owner, I can't sit there and go, okay, well, the price went up 30%, so I'm going to raise my price 30%. Because if the guy next to me
Sure,
goes,
because you have to take into account whether or not people will be purchasing it from you, or if your competitor still has it lower. Like, there's kind of some more factors that you have to dig into there before you can just make that choice.
Right, because if my competitor sits there and goes, okay, well, Duncan raised it 30%, I'm going to raise it 15% to keep it lower, right? What happened during COVID, though, is with Katie Porter, we'll get into her in a minute, gets into this, is there was so much demand after COVID because everybody was getting out of their houses finally and the economy was getting back up. Demand was through the roof, so companies realized we can inflate the price as much as we want because demand is so high, it doesn't matter what supply is. Mm-hmm. But that's starting to go away, and that's why inflation's coming down, and there's all this pressure. But yeah, he hasn't gotten into any of that stuff yet. We'll see where he goes from here. But
you have to do a price increase to stay open, otherwise you're not profitable, to cover your actual cost of goods and cost of labor.
Yeah, and you don't have any margin, you're in business.
And when the cost of labor goes up due to cost of living raises or any other raises, just a shortage of workers. An example of that is, we told, when America got Fauci'd, we told all of the service industry, all the waiters and the people that make your beds at the hotel and the people in the service world, that they weren't essential. And we sent them home, told them they couldn't work. If you're a restaurant worker, you're not allowed to work. And in some places we did that for a month. Other places we did it for a year. When you tell people they're not essential and then you want them to come back, they remember how you pissed on them last time.
Oh, well, wait a minute. He's got that backwards.
You're also playing outside the lines. You do it quiet and you...
Gosh. So they're upset you didn't call them essential and you sent them home. That's what they're upset about? A lot of these places closed and a lot of these people stopped working, not because you didn't call us essential, but because we didn't want to get COVID and die.
Right.
He's got such a backwards view of that. It's not because you didn't call them essential. It's because they didn't want to get sick. Right? And let's face it, now that we're talking about supply and demand, supply for workers. Okay, there's a virus out there. There's no vaccine for it. There's no cure for it. People are dying left and right. We don't know what the long-term effects are at that point. We have a pretty good idea now. A lot of people who've had COVID, it's going to take 10 years off the end of their life because of heart problems or respiratory problems that they still have from having COVID. forget all that. So we don't even know any of that yet. But I want you, Lacey, to stay and keep making beds, and you to keep working in the restaurant around other people.
Right.
Who you can get this virus from. Well, I'm sorry, the risk has gone up, right? Supply of workers who are willing to take that risk has dropped drastically. So now me as the worker, and this is why I think it's so important that we covered the strikes and the unionization. Now me as the worker, I have a bargaining power. The price has now got to go up. If I'm going to put my life at risk, the price has got to go up. You know, if it's going to be fucking amateur hour, the price has got to go up.
Right.
You know, but that he doesn't factor it from the worker's perspective. It's just the employer's perspective of, well, you didn't call them essential. You should have called them essential. And that they would have stayed. Why? Because workers are stupid. I mean, I don't know where he's going with that. I mean, did you have fun?
No. I'm kind of surprised by the simplistic view he's taken on this. Actually,
It's a very conservative view. There's no
Right.
There's no real thought process to it. Other than some people have to work and some people deserve to make their
Now you
rules.
might be looking at $25 because there's a shortage of workers in those industries still to this day, post-COVID. And so, the economic implications of COVID are still shaking out. You create a labor disruption and a labor price change. And we've seen it in other areas of labor as well. Our cost of what we pay someone to work here at Ramsey has changed in some of the areas pretty dramatically. And we do comp studies to see where they're charging. So then that means that if I'm going to be profitable, I have to raise a price somewhere.
Yeah.
And so that person that buys that pays more, and that's called inflation.
Yeah, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. It's just part of it.
But I mean, what he's pointing out, and I think it's good for people to hear out there, is when you're walking around with a little picket in your hand and you're saying, I demand $15, I demand $22 where I was making $10 to work at McDonald's, then the cost of McDonald's goes up to cover your idea of you being worth more. Then you don't get to bitch about paying more for stuff.
Well, see there it was. That's all I wanted. So that's what it is. So in his mind, and this is historically true. When wages go up, costs go up. That does happen, right?
Right.
But the thing about it is that what happened recently? Because you got to remember one of the many golden rules of finance is history is not necessarily repeated. What historically happened is not necessarily what's going to happen in the future. Right? So let's look at this, because this is what actually happened, and this is going to be Katie Porter, and she's going to be talking about this. She did this back in Congress a while ago, but here, let me get this teed up. Give me 1 second here.
So with her, we're going to take a look at the reason we have experienced inflation most recently.
Right. Yeah, so she actually does this. She did this in Congress. So let's. This is we stole this from the Majority Report, and they're going to talk about it a little bit too. But I just want to mostly just get this clip from her. All right, here we go. I got it. All right, here we go.
According to this chart, what is the biggest driver of inflation during the pandemic? The dark blue is the recent period.
It would be corporate profits.
And what is that percentage?
It is 54%, and that number does stay that level of high if you update that number to more recent numbers as well.
So over half of the increased prices people are paying are coming from increases in corporate profits.
Yes, the unit price index is reflected in corporate profits as opposed to other costs.
And how does that compare to historically to other periods of inflation or over other periods of economic time?
It is reflected there, and in other analysis, it is significantly higher in this recovery, 11.5%.
And what is it today?
53%.
So I want to make sure everyone in America understands this chart. What is a unit labor cost?
The cost of the wages and associated
Right.
work
So
costs.
we could just wages. What is a non-labor input cost?
A variety of things, including maintenance and investments.
Okay, so I have to buy the stuff to make the widget. I have to have a factory. I have to get the lights out. I have to hire someone to make the widget. That's this stuff. And this is what I add on top.
So there it was. So once again, Dave is wrong. Yeah, historically, yeah, unit labor cost is the thing that drives up the most. But you have to remember, she's looking at it from, God, what years was she looking at? 2019 to, when did she start? Let me look. Let's go back and look at this real quick. When did she start on that chart?
Right.
Hang on, let's see if we can get what year.
It is reflected there, and in other analysis, it is significantly higher in this recovery.
Let's see if we can. 2079 to 2019.
Say it again.
1979 to 2019. And then the dark blue on that chart is 2020 to 2021. So what ended up happening this is where his whole thing got fucked up, is he's not factoring in demand at all.
Right.
And he's not factoring in the worker perspective at all. The demand was so high, and the companies realized that. They realized it didn't matter what the supply was, we can jack up the price as much as we want. And people will pay it. And that's what drove inflation up so high during the last, 3 years. That's why you're paying so much. Not because they were paying workers more, not because their costs went up, but because they realized you would pay more for the same fucking thing. So for him to sit there and say, well, this is historically, yeah, if your wages go up, you got to raise prices or do whatever you got to do, right? Cut costs somewhere else. But the bottom line is that's what the difference is this is turned into where it's flipped. Where now the companies get to decide what cost should be, what price should be.
Right.
As opposed to where a normal economic curve would sit there and go, well, wait a minute, no, it's actually going to be what the consumer in demand is. So if he's sitting there like, oh, you're bitching about I'm not getting paid enough to work at McDonald's. Well, had it been that way, sort of that more correct economic way, yeah, you'd be paying more at McDonald's, but the average person would be making a lot more. So it wouldn't.
Right.
They wouldn't see this huge gap like we talked about earlier, where wages have stagnated and only gone up 16%, or that household income's only gone up 16%.
It would be the price of my meal cost more, but I'm also making more, so it's fine. Like it wouldn't.
Right. You got to factor it in, right?
Right. Sure.
Right. There's that, like we said, annual household income 50 years has only gone up 16%. Well, how much has a hamburger gone up in the last 50 years? 500-600%? Easily. So you're making less to pay more.
Right.
So he's got it all flip-flop backwards where it's like, well, but then, if you have to pay them more, it's not fair. It's not fair that we should have to pay workers enough that they can eat. Or survive. Oh, he's just such a wonderful human being.
Oh gosh.
Oh man.
It's so short-sighted in his analysis.
And he doesn't ever have an analysis. He just regurgitates right-wing talking points he sees on Fox and thinks he half read in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, that's all he's got. But I got one more, and we'll wrap up.